All right, cool beans. All right, so let's just go back. To slide one, and then share my screen with you all. Thumbs up. Can everyone see my screen? Great. Let me make sure, actually, you know what? Let me make sure the sound is on. That's important. Just do that one more time. Okay, perfect. So I can see the majority of you. Thank you all for turning your video on. Yes, look at that, all your beautiful faces. Super excited. So we have a few videos embedded, but let me start by introducing myself. So my name is Anissa Smith, and I'm director of our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on campus. And I've been at Penn State for about a year. It's been super exciting to be here. I actually started my higher ed career at Penn State Berks 15 years ago. So I've been working with college students for 15 years, but I've been consulting and teaching and facilitating on areas of diversity and inclusion for about 7 years. I've traveled all around. As far as Texas and Indiana, I'm speaking to audiences of all kinds about these issues. So it just gives me a great pleasure to be able to do this. So like you all know, we're all working from home. So although my nice background has me in a mountain somewhere, I'm not in the mountains. I am home. I'm home with the puppy. So you may hear my puppy. So I will let you know in advance. She might make an appearance, as well as the multiple people that are in my house. So as also, thank you for joining us. So today we're talking about allyship. In all transparency, I had the thought to today's presentation because it's just been a tough week for me personally, but I decided to lean into that uncomfortability or anger or discomfort that I personally feel, and to have this conversation with all of you in hopes that someone will learn something new or someone will be able to share, and that we can share space. If you are not familiar with what's going on in the world, in the city of Philadelphia, unfortunately on Monday, or afternoon or some another Black man lost his life, Walter Wallace Jr., by the hands of officers in an unfortunate incident. And the city has just been in chaos and rioting and civil unrest, and it's been a really tough week for a lot of our students that live in some of the areas that have been rioted, that, you know, where this is kind of like every day for them. And although I don't live in Philadelphia right now, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and I know where my mom and my grandmother live now in Germantown. It's a mess. They're still rioting and looting, and there's been some peaceful protesting, which is great, but it's happening right here in our city, really close to us. And so for me, it's just been hard. So it's super exciting to have this conversation with all of you. First question is, why are you here? So I know a number of you are here because you were told to come here for class, and some of you are here because you're fulfilling your obligation in terms of your maybe PSU1 class. But I wanted to hear from at least 3 people. I want to hear some voices and meet some folks. So who are you? And why are you here? Or maybe what are you hoping to learn? If we know you're here because you kind of were mandated to attend 8 events and this is the event you picked, what are you hoping to learn? So just unmute yourself and just go ahead. Anyone? Anyone?
I'll go.
Hello. Yes. Thank you.
Hi,
Yes.
it's Alexis. I work over with University Police and Public Safety. I am in this training just because I want to learn more about allyship, what that looks like at Penn State Abington, what that looks like across Penn State.
Awesome. So much. Thanks, Alexis. Sorry, I'm trying to push mute and not so you can hear my background so much. Who else? Who's out there? Why are you here? What are you hoping to learn? I'm going to talk with you for an hour, or you have to talk back to me. So what are you hoping to learn? When you hear the word allyship, what do you think about and what are you hoping that you learn?
Hi, my name is Larkin Richards. I chose to come to the allyship workshop because I feel like I need to learn how to be a better supporter. As I'm not a person of color, so I want to be the best way to help the voices with people of color. So I feel like this was the best way for me to learn through my school to keep going and learning more.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Larkin. One more person.
I guess I'll say something. My name's Jahira. I'm part of Miss Anissa's class. But when I heard about allyship from one of my mentors, I took a peek and I was very interested because I want to be like everybody else said, I want to be a better supporter, a better friend, a better peer. And hopefully through this course, I can learn that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So thanks you all for sharing. The chat box is going to be open as well. I can kind of toggle between the two, but any of my staff that are on the line, if you can let me know if I'm missing something in the chat box, that would be great. Feel free to add in the chat box, and as we go through and we watch the videos, I'll be asking you to answer in the chat box. So I'm looking for everyone to participate because that's a great way that you don't have to talk. So I want to, make sure to put the disclaimer out there that this is not the end all be all, right? I hope to just introduce some topics to you all that will start you on your journey to becoming a better ally. Allyship is, and I want to go back to my first quote so that you see. So an ally is not a thing to be, it's a way to live. And so what I want to encourage you all to do is think about how you can live allyship, right? Ally is not like, oh, I want to be an ally. No, like I just want my life to exemplify allyship in everything that I try to do. And that's really what I wholeheartedly believe. And I can't do it in an hour, but I hope to take a great stab at it. So our flow for today would be to go over some common terms that we talk about because we've done 4 programs before this. So if you've been here for racism or privilege or microaggressions, those are the ones that kind of set us up in order to talk about this. There's a development process that goes along with becoming an ally, which has a lot to do with your self-reflection. So that's something that you have to do for yourself and questions you have to answer. We'll talk about some examples, some do's and don'ts, and then end with a great video, which gives us some suggestions of how to be better allies. And at any time, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat or raise your hand. I can see that as well. So when we talk about allyship, the interesting thing is that most people believe, I would say maybe before this year, believed it to only be about the LGBT community. But allyship is about any community you're not a part of, that you take on that struggle for yourself, as well as advocate and stand in solidarity with those people. So as you look at this social identity wheel, I want you to think about your identities that you hold, right? Which identities that you hold privilege in, and we'll review what privilege is in a minute, and which areas you feel like you've been oppressed or something has been taken away from you because of. And those privileged identities are usually not those dominant identities. So the maybe top 5 dominant identities are white, male, Christian, straight, and man, right? So if you hold any of those 5 dominant identities, you have, I think it's the power and the privilege to make change and to use it. And so I like to start with this by saying you can be an ally for any community you're not a part of. And so if you're white, you might be thinking about how you can be an ally for people of color. If you're straight, how you can be an ally for LGBT people. If you're a US born citizen, how can you be an ally for undocumented individuals, right? So really kind of thinking about those things. If you're able-bodied, how can you be an ally for people who aren't able-bodied? And so allyship is about lots of different identity groups and sectors. It's not just about being LGBT or race, although with everything going on in the world, particularly in the last 48 hours, I'm going to frame most of what I'm talking about around race, but all of the things kind of reciprocate into the other identities as well. So I want to start with privilege because I feel like it's one of the most confusing things. And although I did a Privilege 101 workshop, I still get a lot of questions about privilege. Automatically, when people hear privilege, they automatically feel like I work hard for what I have, you know, but privilege is one of those things that you don't get to choose. It's kind of like what you were born into. And I used to do this privilege walk activity a lot in smaller, intimate groups. And of course, it's not something we can do virtually, but I want you to watch this video. And as we watch it, I want you to think about the privileges, how you've experienced privilege because of your being in a certain group, how you've been disadvantaged because you've been in a certain group, as well as how privilege shows up in your life. And I want you to reflect on that in the chat. And so I'm interested in reading some of your thoughts as you watch the video and you connect with things. Just type it right in the chat so that I can feel like you're here with me and you see what's going on. All right, so just give me a thumbs up, making sure you can hear the video.
Hey babe, it's the holidays. Got the whole fam rocking jingle jammies. Our 18th time watching Love Actually.
I did not sponsor this ad, by the way.
Shop Jingle Jammies from head to toe to tail. We holiday only at Old Navy and OldNavy.com.
Some people are born into families where they have to walk miles just to get water. All I have to do is turn on a faucet. That's privilege.
If you have ever tried to change your speech, if you were embarrassed about your clothes or house, if you would never think twice about calling the police when trouble occurs.
I think privilege is when some people have some things and other people don't have things.
I feel privilege is something that you don't even really have control over.
I think it'd be silly for me to say I don't have a fair amount of privilege, considering like the country I live in and the job I get to do and the college I was allowed to go to.
I suppose being a white male will help me end up somewhere towards the front, but I'll take a few steps back from being gay.
I don't think I'll make it to the front. I think I'll maybe be in the middle. That's just the gut feeling I have.
If your parents work nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back. If you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward. If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical or mental illness or disability, take one step back. If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something you can't change, take one step back. If you get time off for your religious holidays, take one step forward. If you came from a supportive family environment, if you can see a doctor whenever you feel the need, if you are able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault, if you got loans for your education, if there were more than 50 books in your house growing up. So these are your final positions.
I think it felt kind of strange for everyone.
It's a hard thing to discuss or even reflect on. It was very awkward.
I think when you can represent it so visually like this and so immediately, it definitely takes on a new form.
I think we were like all joking around in the beginning. It was pretty lighthearted, and as soon as the questions started coming in, the mood shifted immediately, and we all it was just silent.
Just looking back and seeing like a bunch of people behind you is not a good feeling.
It's like weird how you want to like hold on to explaining a certain privilege, like, oh, but that's not actually me because like I had to work really hard for that. So it's weird to like take a step forward when you feel like you're taking a step forward with someone else, but you wear a lot of the baggage of like how those things were hard.
It was like more emotional than I thought it would be.
It reminded me of when they talk about slavery in high school, and you feel like angry for a few days, but then you just realize like, this is how it is.
For me, it was kind of frustrating almost to look back and see how much further some people were behind me, and realizing that, you know, a lot of that stuff, no amount of hard work or even legislation can make up that gap.
It's interesting being an Asian American because you're not really sure where you fall on the spectrum of privilege.
I know that for me, one of the reasons I ended up so far back was that there are questions around safety as an African American, as a woman, as a gay woman. There are just so many different ways that I don't feel safe.
I feel like I just learned to be grateful for what you have. You know, we're in such a huge society where it's always complaining about what you don't have.
It just shows you that for some families, like each family, you're meant to do better. My grandparents did good, my parents did good, and I'll do even better.
I do think if you're not like aware of privilege, you should do this exercise, but it's more complicated.
All right, thoughts? So no one typed anything in the chat. So the questions are, have you experienced privilege because of a group membership, or have you been disadvantaged because of a group membership? So really thinking about your privileges versus your oppressions, oppressive identities, or thoughts. But I need to hear from some of you to make sure that you're connecting with what we're talking about. So if you think about do you all know what your privileged identities are? Thumbs up, yes, privileged identities in which you hold privilege, not because you pick those, but just because you are. So I'm white, or I'm Christian, or I'm straight, or I'm a man, you know, those dominant identities. Thoughts? Okay, awesome. So tapping in and understanding. Thank you, Isaac. Okay, so you're all saying yes. Yes is fine, but more information is what I need. So Isaac said, definitely, I've been fortunate to be a part of some groups that are certainly privileged compared to others. Okay, so what I'm asking you to do here, this is Allyship 101. And the number one part of allyship is that personal reflection. Right, personal reflection, like not just coming to a workshop and just sitting there and listening and then leaving and going back to your regularly scheduled programming. Like that you're able to connect with what we're saying. And for people that are on this call that, you know, may be disadvantaged because you're Black or gay or a woman or not US born, right? Or any religion that's not Christian, right? The way you show up in this conversation is sharing your experiences. And when we get to the part where you get to share, a lot of people are asking, what do I do? You know, especially around all of the civil unrest and everything going on locally, as well as nationally. White folks are asking, what do they do? Right. And so kind of going from there. So I'm going to go on to the next slide to keep
those shiny, meshy workout leggings are
so another piece or component of understanding allyship is what a lot of allies tend to do is kind of perpetuate some of the things they claim to be fighting against, right? And so what we need to understand with microaggressions is these are some of the things that you as a well-intended ally may commit. So we want to make sure that you have an understanding. So this is a quick 3-minute video. And the questions are there. So what I'm asking you to do is to answer the question in the chat so that we can kind of making sure you're connecting to the information. But it's really important that you understand it. So if you weren't here for our Microaggressions 101, this is just going to be a quick recap.
What's up, everybody? I'm Dr. CI, and this is episode number 7 in our learning series for 2018. So today we are going to be talking about microaggressions. Now, what is a microaggression? A microaggression is a common practice that happens daily that is usually an insult against someone's personal identity or their heritage, whether conscious or unconscious, that happens that offends that person, okay? Now, there are 3 types of microaggressions that we're going to talk about today. The micro insult, which is usually unconscious and people don't understand that they are offending your personal identity when they say it or who you are, right? So for example, let's say a person walks up to you and they say, "Oh my goodness, you are so articulate. You speak so well." That's an insult, because what that says is that you have low expectations of the way that this person should speak based on how they look, right? So it's like, oh my God, you're Black, you probably don't speak that well. Oh my gosh, you are Mexican, you probably don't speak that well. And I am surprised that you are articulate. That is why that is offensive. The next is a micro assault. Let's say you see a Black woman walking down the street with an afro, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you reach out and touch her hair without her permission, right? She is offended by that. Let's talk, for example, about a micro assault. It's something that you know that you shouldn't be doing. It is a conscious act to offend someone's personal identity or heritage. For example, if your child comes out to you and says, you know, I date people of the same sex, or I'm LGBTQ, and you deny them the right, you say, I forbid you from dating someone of the same sex. That's not right. It's not in our religion, etc. That is a micro assault, okay? You are conscious of the fact that you are denying them the right to their personal identity. Now, some people say that's just an assault. It's not, okay? Because a micro assault is very different from a macro assault. A macro assault is, for example, if I am the president and I have created a law that forbids people from dating of the same sex. That's a micro assault. There is authoritarianism behind it. There is consequence based on an institutional privilege. That's at the macro level. At the micro level means that it happens in your house. Those two assaults are very different. The third one is a micro invalidation. Now, what does that mean? A micro invalidation is if someone is bringing up an event in which they felt like they were discriminated against by another person and their personal identity or heritage was offended. And let's say, for example, you're in a meeting with your team, and Michael brings up the fact that he was at a social event and he felt like George said something racist towards him, discriminated against him. And then John steps in and says, oh no, there's no way that person could have been discriminating against you. I know them. They're a good person. Let's move on. You have invalidated Michael's experience of what happened in that event. And because of that, you have rendered what he said useless, right, in that moment. And no one is listening. That's a micro invalidation. So you have 3 examples of the different ways that microaggressions occur. So make sure you check out the description.
All right, so we are talking in the chat. Thank you. Finally, I think it's hitting. So thank you. Someone shared that they used to tell their Korean friend that they were shocked because they were bad at math. So a microaggression is like assuming every Asian person you meet is good at math. Do we know that that's not true? Like, of course, right? So many people said that math is so good because you're a girl, or saying like that was good for a girl. So Gina said, so a lot of people are saying that they really haven't thought about that they actually experience microaggressions often. But even for me being a Black woman, people will say all the time, like, you're so pretty. And I'm like, so pretty for, right? So pretty for a Black woman. Like, so the assumption is that Black women aren't attractive. That's basically what you're telling me. So really kind of think about things that people have said. Yes, if people have tried to touch your hair, that's my life daily, especially when I used to wear colorful hair and big hair. But absolutely. So sometimes you can commit microaggressions and not know. So I'm going to move on, but it's definitely important, and some things to think about. I'm actually going to skip the next one. I'm just going to briefly talk about it. I'm not going to show the video. Have people heard of intersectionality? Raise your hand or give me a wave if you've heard of it. Has anyone heard of it? Ooh, no, maybe we need to watch this video. Okay, let's do it real quick. And then we'll spend the last half an hour really dumping into examples and how to move forward. But this is important.
Intersectionality. Have you heard this word before? Even if you have, you might not know what it means. Let's take a look at it. The first part's easy enough. Intersection, a place where things come together. Intersectionality refers to the reality that we all have multiple identities that intersect to make us who we are. It also gives us a way to talk about oppressions and privileges that overlap and reinforce each other. This term dates back to the 1980s and legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw. She noticed that we didn't have an effective way to talk about how the experiences of Black women are different from the experiences of Black men and of white women. How? Black women endure both gender discrimination and racial discrimination. Over the last 30 years, scholars, educators, and activists have expanded the use of the word intersectionality to talk about identities beyond race and gender. Let's look at a few examples. Jerry has a disability, and his family lives below the poverty line. He is the oldest of 10, which requires him to do a lot of caregiving, and sometimes keeps him out of school. No one in the school counseling office has talked to Jerry or his parents about his plans for after graduation. He has applied for several jobs, but never gets called back. Fatima is Muslim and recently came to the United States from Somalia. She finds that many people at her school make assumptions about her values and abilities before they speak to her. Many of her classmates think she shouldn't be at their school at all. Greta comes from an affluent family. Both her parents and grandparents went to college, and her father owns a successful business. She doesn't think about her identity very often, but she does think of herself as someone who will go to college and get a good job once she graduates. Think about Greta's situation as opposed to Fatima's or Jerry's. Fatima and Jerry are members of marginalized groups. They don't get to choose whether or not to think about their identities. Greta, on the other hand, can ignore intersectionality if she wants to. Life isn't the same for everyone, even for people who share identity characteristics. By adopting an intersectional lens, we have a better opportunity to understand why and to change the institutions that help and harm us based on who we are. Want to learn more? Read our story, Teaching at the...
All right. So it's a little bit complex, and it's not something that I feel like I acknowledge people to be able to grasp instantly. But basically, it just says that our identities are multiple. So sometimes we experience oppressions multiple. So for example, just take me. For example, I'm not only a woman, but I'm Black and I'm gay, right? So I experience all three of those oppressions together. And so intersectionality is about like how we show up. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to be Black over here, right, and not a woman. And it's about like all of our intersections. So when you think about allyship, it's not okay to say like, oh, well, I'm an ally, I'm white and I'm an ally for people of color. Oh, but LGBT people, like, no, I don't really believe in that, right? How is that possible when some people of color may identify as LGBT? Does that make sense? So thoughts about like those underlying things, which is why the reflection piece is like so important. So when you think about the development of them, so this question comes up all the time. So I just want to make sure I put it in plain sight so like we understand that people who have privilege listen to other people who have privilege. And that's why allies matter, right? That's why allies are super important. For me, whenever I'm doing presentations, I really want to hear from folks and people to make reflections, because sometimes people aren't even listening to what I'm saying, right? Merely because I'm a Black woman. But if a white person would say it or a man would say it, then they may be, intend to listen. And so I'm gonna go through this pretty fast too, but this presentation, I'll send it out. It'll be available to you all on our YouTube. But I feel like the development of your allyship is super important. So like what questions you ask yourself, like your self-reflection, your understanding of history, right? So a lot of white people want to know what they could do. For me, I'm just like, what history do you know? Because I know when I was in school, I wasn't taught Black history. So I don't know what y'all were taught when y'all were in school, but like, what do you know about the history of anything? The history of police brutality, right? The history of slavery. Like, what do you know about the history of the community that you claim to be an ally for? Understanding the language, like what to use and what not to use. There's a lot of language and words thrown around for LGBT communities, for people of color communities, but really just understanding, how do I speak in and what's right and what's not right, what could be offensive, and for everyone it could be so different. And then this fourth piece of owning your impact is so critical, right? Where have I unintentionally or negatively impacted someone in a community that I claim to help? So I see this happen every day with colleagues, with friends, people who want to be well-intended actually end up offending the people like me who they're trying to help. And so just asking you all to really think about that. You know, a lot of people will say, well, I'm not racist, right? And so when you're called out on something, an automatic thing is to say that I'm racist, right? But it's not about you being racist, it's about the impact of what you did. You intended it one way, but the impact was very different. So just owning the impact, right? And so figuring out what that says. And then how do you make amends or acknowledge what your intent was? So those are just things to think about. A lot of questions to ask yourself. And the last two pieces are knowing your role and then being able to, sorry, y'all, interpret the bias. Two different things, right? So what role, like where are you at in your journey in terms of being an ally? Are you really like, I don't know anything, like I just want to help? And a lot of people are at the I just want to help phase, but in helping, they may do the wrong thing. Think about a problem that you may have had, right? I give this example all the time. So someone comes to fix the problem, but they fix it the way they wanted it to be fixed, not actually the way you need it to be fixed. Is it helpful? Yes, no, helpful, thumbs up if it's helpful. Thumbs up if you want them to fix, do you want them to fix it the way you want it to be fixed, right? Yes, head nod. All right, awesome. So really thinking about that. Thank you. I see y'all in the chat. And then interpreting bias, right? So where do I hear and see bias in my own community? And how can I disrupt these things? So the biggest thing about being an ally is being an ally when there's no one there to see you, right? So there's something we call performative allyship, meaning I'm an ally when I'm performing. Like I can share a post or go on a rant on a Facebook status, but when I'm at the dining room table with my grandfather who says something negative and no one is there, that I let that fly. So being an ally is about being an ally all the time, you know. So privilege is that I don't personally, as a person of color, I don't get the privilege to not know what's going on in the world, right? But when you have privilege, you can have lived this whole week and not know what's going on in the city of Philadelphia, right? Because it's not something that's on your radar. It's not something you're thinking about, and that's what privilege is. But how do you interrupt bias in your own family, in your own friend groups? Like, how do you like let things fly? You know, for me being LGBT, I always think about my friends who are like always have my back, but I wonder like, do you have my back when I'm not in the room? You know, so if people make gay jokes that are definitely irrelevant and not true, like, do you stand up for that when I'm not around? So just things to think about, right? And to make it plain, I think the easiest way to do this is to like take oppression and privilege out. So let's just say that people who have privilege wear boots and the people who are oppressed wear sandals, right? And we're going to take it as someone stepping on your toe. How many people have had someone step on their toe? Wave your hand, give me a thumbs up. You had someone step on your toe? Did it hurt? Awesome. Okay, so we're take this stepping on your toe metaphor and we're going to go with this. So y'all got to go with me. Okay, so remember, the people who are privileged wear boots and the people who are oppressed have on sandals. Okay, and so this is kind of like how we can make sense. So this is what happens when it goes down, right? The person that has on boots centers their self. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you think I'm a toe stepper. Like, I'm a good person. I really didn't mean it, right? Centering themselves in this whole situation. Denial that others' experiences are different than your own. So I don't mind when people step on my toes, but you have on boots, right? So you don't mind when people step on your toes, but you have on boots. Of course you don't mind, right? And so you're denying that the other person's experience is one that's not good. Derailing, right? So maybe you say some people don't even have toes. Why aren't we talking about them instead, right? And so changing the whole conversation. I find that when it's time to talk about race, like usually someone makes a joke or talks about the Eagles or football or COVID, and I'm just like, no, let's stay on racism, right? But people derail; they don't want to talk about it. Refusing to center the impacted person. So that's this all toes matter, right? All lives matter, right? But can we just focus on what we're talking about? So, you know, the Black Lives Matter and all lives matter and the police lives matter. I believe that they all matter, but we're talking about the demographic of lives that are being taken currently, right? And those lives are Black. That's what we're talking about. We're not saying that all lives don't matter. We're just saying right now Black lives are being disproportionately taken. And so really thinking about that. Tone policing, right? I move my foot if you ask me more nicely. So of course, when things come up, we tend to get a little aggressive or excited in our voice, right? And so people, talk about our tone. So denial that the problem is fixable by thinking like toes getting stepped on is a fact of life. You'd be better off accepting that, right? So who wants to accept it? Like, why does it have to be a fact of life? And then victim blaming. So you shouldn't have been walking around people with boots. Think about it, right? So I just really want you to like think about these things. And the last one, withdrawing. So I thought you wanted my help, but I guess not. I'll just go home, right? And that's the whole phenomenon that I have the privilege to leave the situation and not have to think about it. So what we want allies to do more of is to stay in it. Stay in it when it's uncomfortable, when the tone gets raised, right? When you're called out, when your boots, you have your boot print on my sandal print and I know it was you, like just to stay in it. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? So kind of like use the metaphor. And I'm gonna give you, I already gave you the link to this article so that you can use this to help people understand. But then how should you react? So those are the ways that people react as allies. But what we want allies to do is to center the person that's impacted. So whoever you stepped on, are you okay? Right? Simply ask that question. No matter if you didn't mean it to hurt or not. Listen to their response and then learn from what they have to say. Apologize for the impact, even though you didn't intend it, right? Such a hard thing for people to say, I apologize, I'm sorry, but we have to do more of that. Really important. Stop for an instance and move your foot, right? So really thinking it, this is what happened, like stop in the moment. Stop the patterning. So be careful where you step in the future. So learning from what you have going on, and for folks who are in here that you have been on the other side, these are examples when people really come to you and you have the capacity to help them. Like, this is what I need you to do, right? So this conversation is for everyone, because sometimes we don't even know what to tell people because we're just tired. We're exhausted. But we have to give them examples of what it exactly is that we want them to do. Someone in the chat said it only benefits them if they fix it the way they see fit. Right. Okay, you're talking about my last question. You're correct. Questions, thoughts, did that make sense? My boot and sandal metaphor, y'all get it? So intent versus impact is so important. It's really, really important, right? So think about you and Bae. So I call Bae whoever you love, dating, like, right? If Bae says, that dress looks kind of, and you're like, kind of what? Like what was maybe they intended maybe to tell you that you look cute, but the way they said it had you wondering if they were saying, I don't know, it wasn't cute, right? So that doesn't change the way it impacted you, even though they intended it not to. So you can put it in any situation and really think about it. But this boot and sandal metaphor is life. Like, it's not mine. I found it in an article, but I think it's the greatest way to explain. All right, so some do's and some don'ts before we kind of wrap up. Do be open to listening. So for allies, a lot of times people want to skip the listening part because you're listening to respond, but are you listening to understand? Really, really important. So as I talk to, some of my colleagues over the last few days about how I was not okay, a lot of people really just listen, and that felt really good. They didn't listen to have anything to say. They just listened to just touch base with how I was feeling, which is really good. Be aware of your implicit bias. How many people know they have implicit bias? Raise your hand. Everyone has them. Everyone has implicit bias. Just the way you are kind of indoctrined to think about a certain thing. Does someone have their hand up? I can't see it. If you just want to say something, you can just come off of mute and jump in. Okay. It keeps on flashing back and forth. But so it's just the way we think about things, right? Even some of the things that you eat, like who knows a food that they don't eat and they don't even know why they don't eat it. They just don't eat it. Someone give me an example. What's a food that you don't eat that you just don't even eat it and you just judge it and you haven't even tasted it?
Olives.
Who? Zucchini, yes. So why? Yes, Aubrey, zucchini. Me too. Oh, blue cheese. Well, I know why I don't eat blue cheese because it's raw. But like, think about it, right? So I love talking about food. All my students know. Don't judge me, y'all. But food is like one of those things that is some foods out there that you know you've never tasted, but you wouldn't dare eat it, right? Who won't eat broccoli? Broccoli is your friend. But sardines, right? Sorry. So let's go to sardines, Michaela, because I was told like you poor if you eat sardines. So, I mean, that's just kind of like what I learned. How do I know that? It's probably rich people who eat sardines. So we all have these implicit bias, right? And you really like, don't think about it. What were the first things, if you're white, you learned about people of color? If you're straight and you didn't have any LGBT people in your family, what was the first thing you learned about LGBT people? What is the first thing you learned about people that were immigrants or not born here in the US? So you have to like really jump in. Sorry, I can do a whole workshop on implicit bias. So we're gonna move on. Doing your research, learning about your history and the struggle that in which you are participating, right? So it's not about you being responsible, but you're a part of the struggle. So doing your research, really learning. There are some great books and some great movies for you to kind of to do your own research. You don't have to ask the community in which you're trying to help you. And so in a follow-up, we will totally share some books and some movies with you all about that. Doing the inner work to figure out a way to acknowledge how you participate in oppressive systems. So oppression and white supremacy, and if you heard the word white supremacy before, basically it's the ideal that white people are better than people of color, period, in systems, in the world, in government, you know. So if you're a part of those systems at work, right? Are things going down in your jobs? It doesn't have to be a career. It could be just your part-time job at the Old Navy selling pajamas, right? What's going on there? Using your privilege to amplify historical suppressed voices. So if you get access to somewhere and you know you pretty much got that access because of your privilege, can you bring someone with you or can you amplify someone's voice, right? And so for me, when I get the, you know, ability to travel somewhere and present, I try to take people with me, you know, especially people who maybe are trans or maybe are undocumented, right? Who have different stories than me. So how do I open doors, even with all my oppressive identities? And then learning and listening and accepting criticism with grace, even if it's uncomfortable. A lot of people don't like to be uncomfortable. And then doing the work every day. Sorry, y'all, that was the last one. But doing the work every day. This is not something that like, you're gonna be like, yep, I went to Anissa's workshop, I'm an ally, boom, let's go. No, it's work every single day. Like you have to work. And if you are a person of color, like you still have work to do. There is still some community that you could be an ally for. As people of color, really important. Like I said, I'm Black, I'm gay. Guess what? Black folks be like Black power, but then gay power, they be like, no, we don't believe in that. We're Christian, like that's against the Bible. And I'm like, pause, are we in this together or not in this together, right? So really thinking about how you ally and who you ally for. All right, some quick don'ts. I'm just gonna click them. But don't expect to be told or shown, just talked about that. Don't expect to participate in the gold medal for oppression Olympics. Oppression Olympics basically means like, I'm oppressed. No, I'm more oppressed. No, I'm more oppressed than you because like, we're not doing that here. Don't behave as you know is best. Don't take credit for the labor of those who are marginalized and did the work. I've literally been at a table and said something and not been listened to. And then a man says it and everybody's like, yes, that's the answer. And I'm like, I just said that. Like, but no one was listening to me. And so for students, you know, we have so many students here. I know this is something that may go in one ear and out the other, but I guarantee you, I don't know where this world is going, especially post this election, but as you get into your career fields and you graduate, these things aren't going away. Everything that's kind of coming to the surface now is not new. Everyone with me on that? It's just being televised now. Right? So really thinking about like how these things will show up 10 years from now. This is not something that we can get away from. These are not, hopefully we won't be having these kind of conversations this way. But don't assume that every member of the underinvested community feels oppressed, right? So every person of color doesn't like feel so oppressed, right? There are levels to it and you need to like understand everyone's feelings and emotions and how they feel. So I think that's super important. All right, so to sum it up, I'm gonna use my girl because I love her. And she has this quick video which kind of like sums up some tips. So this is kind of our ending activity. So I want everyone to participate in this. It's really important. So I want you to connect with at least one thing that she says and put it out there as an accountability, like, this is what I plan to do. Like, wow, that really made sense. I see myself doing this. You or I have did this and I don't want to do it anymore. So I want you personally, don't worry about what other people are writing. I want you personally to really like listen to what she's saying and really tap into how you can take at least one thing that she's saying and move it forward in your journey. All right, here we go.
Lean on me when you're not strong. Hey, it's Asante, and today we're talking about allyship. A big thing to remember is that allyship isn't passive. If there's a war, your allies don't just sit there like, oh my gosh, genocide? Oh, that sucks, man. I can't. It's so hard. I don't get it. People can be so awful. I'm totally on your side. The times we live in, it's just so hard. No, they lend their troops, they lend their ships, they send supplies, they send medics, they will go in and fight for you. Allyship is not neutrality. Allyship is not, I believe in you. Good luck! Allyship is an active process that you're always working on. So here are a few steps you can take to be a better ally. First, listen and educate yourself. When people in marginalized groups tell you about harassment or hardships that they're facing because of that marginalization, believe them wholeheartedly. If you feel ignorant in some areas, feel free to ask questions, but maybe ask them to Google first. Trust me, I've asked Google some pretty weird things. It's never offended, and it always has some sort of answer. It's not anyone's responsibility to be your personal tutor on social issues, especially if you're not paying them personal tutor money. There are plenty of resources that are already out there, people who have shared their perspectives in books, articles, YouTube videos. Find the resources that have already been laid out for you. Find the people who are already talking about this stuff online. And as an ally, you should be constantly learning. There's not the Black experience or the queer experience or the experience of being a disabled person. There are so many different ways of walking through the world, being perceived by others, and living at the intersection of various identities and abilities. So even if you think you've heard everything, listen. The second thing that you can do to be a good ally is to uplift marginalized voices. Retweet them, mention them to your friends, highlight them, spotlight them, feature them, hire them, and hire them into positions of authority where they feel empowered to voice their concerns and act on them. Consult with people of color and trans people and neurodiverse people, and then pay them for their time because consulting is a job. Wherever you can, bring diverse people into the conversation. A third thing you can do as an ally is speak up. When you see injustice, when you hear someone being bigoted, call them on their BS. Yeah, it may make you uncomfortable having to point out that someone's being racist, but imagine how uncomfortable Black and brown people feel having to live with that crap every day. It can even be easier to call something out if it's not being directed at you and challenging your very existence. As an ally, you can take that burden off of someone who is already hurting. And if you remain neutral in that sort of situation, you're not an ally. You're not helping. Some people also worry about it being not their place to, for example, speak of issues of race if they're white. But speaking up about injustice isn't the same as speaking for a marginalized group. It is everyone's place to call out problematic behavior, especially since as an ally, you're in a position of privilege and have less fear of retaliation. White people who are slightly racist are more likely to listen to other white people. So as a white ally, it's on you to get your people. Go get your mans. Whose mans is this? Your relatives are likely to listen to you because they usually care about you at least a little bit, and you kind of can't avoid them. So when you're sitting around the table and your auntie acts like people can't be bisexual, call her on it. That is your role as an ally. Bring a supportive voice to the table at tables where I'm never invited to sit. Reach your communities that I don't have access to. Use your privilege to speak where other people would be silenced. Another thing you can do as an ally is to respect safe spaces. Everyone wants to come home at the end of the day. Sure, I may be up for academic debate of politics and social issues, but there are some times when I don't want to be challenged. I don't want to always have to be playing defense. Sometimes I just want to be around other like-minded people with similar experiences who get it. It's empowering, it's strengthening, it's emotionally enriching to be able to fellowship with people without judgments or pretenses or awkward questions just from being who you are. Don't take issue with people coming together around their identity, especially since if you're in the dominant culture, you probably get to do it all the time without even trying. Respect that there's Pride Month, respect that there's Black History Month, and realize that as an ally, the world is already suited to you in that respect. If you're straight and cis, you've probably never feared being threatened for expressing your gender, or felt like you needed to hide your sexuality. If you're white living in a dominantly white country, you've probably always seen people who share your heritage in the history books. If you're able-bodied and neurotypical, you probably have never been stopped from entering a common space because it's inaccessible, or had to retreat from a common space because it's overwhelming. Respect the spaces and times of year where people who are usually sidelined get to take center stage. If you're an ally, you'll be fine with the fact that this is not about you, and sometimes that means politely excusing yourself from spaces meant specifically for marginalized groups. The fifth thing that you can do as an ally is to get to work. Yeah, you gotta do the work. Use your strengths, your access, your resources to help the cause. Protests can be great, but we're not all meant for marching in the streets. You can call people in the government, you can financially support community programs, you can volunteer for supportive organizations. If you're a lawyer, you can give pro bono counsel. If you're a doctor, you can get involved in a clinic. Whatever you do can probably be used to do good for marginalized communities. And if you want more ideas on quick action steps you can take, check out the video I did on the Resist Challenge a while back. Being an ally is an active process, and it's not something that you bestow upon yourself. You don't just get to say, I'm not transphobic or homophobic or racist, therefore I'm an ally. Check. We are always unlearning the prejudices we've been socialized in, and we're all problematic in our different ways. True allyship involves valuing people with experiences different from ours, learning about our privileges and natural prejudices, and working to make the world more equitable in spite of them. In the comments, let me know how allyship has played out in your experience, or genocide?
Can y'all see why I love her? She's so amazing. So y'all gotta check her out on YouTube. But she's great. Ashanti. But yeah, so I've been reading the chat and you all are amazing. I can't read them all, but you should definitely scroll through and read the chat. So I wrote a couple of quick reflections, and then I want to hear from at least 2 or 3 people. But a couple of things, I think I saw someone say like reposting things on social media. So I just want to remind people that reposting traumatic videos is not what we're talking about. So when trauma happens, i.e. Black person being killed by cops, what we don't want is people to keep on reposting the video. I literally saw the video at 5 o'clock in the morning, unfortunately, on someone's Instagram story. And I didn't even know what I was watching until it was too late. And as a mom of a Black boy and the aunt of a Black nephew, I was not the same. Like, I just haven't been right since the video, because unfortunately the mom was trying to stop the son who was running around with the knife, and all I just could hear is the mom in my head. So reposting videos that are traumatic is not an allyship move. Reposting things that are helpful is, like, for example, posting this video talking about how you went to a session and that you really need other people to really like think about allyship as something that we live, right? The one thing she mentioned about having spaces, at every campus I've been in, I've been called racist, unfortunately, for having spaces that are only for people of color. So we have organizations on campus like Sister to Sister and Brother to Brother, who are primarily for our students of color. She talked about why those spaces are needed. Those spaces are needed so those people can come together and talk about things that they go through, that they can really talk to each other about because they experience them. And so it's really important to know that those spaces are necessary. No one is racist for having a space that's only for people of color. And then, so to answer the question is like, where's the space for white people? It's the whole university, right? The whole university is for white folks. So having this one group for people of color is not going to take anything away. And so that's what privilege is about. Privilege is about when people think you're taking it away, then they automatically kind of get uptight. Marriage equality, right? It made all the religious folks be like, oh my God, gay people could get married now. What? You know, so thinking about that. So I think that's important. Speaking up, a lot of people talked about this in the chat about speaking up. Be cautious to speak up when it's safe. Number one, don't be out here getting in trouble and be like, Miss Anissa told me to speak up, right? So you want to speak out when it's safe to do so. And if it's not safe, you will know, like, you kind of follow the feeling in your gut. Not everyone is a big protester, right? So protesting is a form of allyship. And because there's so much protesting going on even right now in our city, I want to be sure that we understand that protesting, safe and peaceful protesting is not for everyone. But if you are a like hit the streets type of person, make you a sign and go protest. Bring some folks with you that are well-intended. But when you go to protest, you put yourself on a line, right? I randomly ride by different parts of where I live in the suburbs, and I randomly see white folks with Black Lives Matter signs on the corner. Like for them to just be standing in the middle of suburbia with a Black Lives Matter sign is like really like pointing all the attention to them. And for me, that's not performative allyship. That's like, yo, I'm willing to be out here and take whatever comes forward because I believe in this cause, and me standing on this corner is going to allow people to see me. And so really thinking about how you live allyship and what that means. And it doesn't always mean being on a protest line. So I just wanted to share that. So with my few minutes I have left, I want to hear from a couple of people. A lot of people wrote some very amazing things in the chat. So thank you. I'll go back and read all of those later. But I want to hear from some people about something that I said or you were introduced to during this workshop that has really impacted you. And I shared transparently that it was really hard for me to do this workshop today, but I pushed through and I'm here. So all I'm asking is to hear from a couple of people so I can know you heard me. All right, we're gonna start with Juan, and then just if you can use your raise your hand feature, that'll be helpful. But I would love to hear from a few of you. All right, Juan, you're up. And just keep your comments a little bit brief so we can get through a couple of people.
Well, I'll try. But like where you were talking about like being a mother, like when I was talking to my mom, she said she could barely watch it on TV. She had to like turn it off almost instantly after she had found out that like the mom was trying to calm him down, because she was telling me like, you know, as a mother, no matter how your son is or no matter what, that you have this unconditional love. And to see him gunned down in front of your eyes like that is just like heartbreaking. And yes. I think it's kind of like messed up because my mom has to sit down and talk to me and be like, yo, when you get pulled over by the cops, don't be acting stupid or don't do everything they say and try to comply, because you're not trying to, you know, end up like somebody like that. And it's unfortunate because I don't even have to be African American for like my mom to be like, yo, we in danger too, because, you know, I feel like as a Hispanic, when they look at you a certain kind of way too, like, let's, you know, yo, he could be illegal or he's a thug or whatever. Like, Absolutely. It's just messed up nowadays.
Yep. Or up to no good, you know? So, you know, if you're anything but white, you're up to no good. Like, and so thank you for sharing that, Juan. I put the movie, The Hate U Give, in the chat. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Like, I know we're watching a lot of stuff on TV now, but watch some stuff that's real. But it reiterates what Juan is talking about. And as a mom of a Black son, he's 14, but he's 5'8". Like, I have to have conversations with him about what to do if you get stopped by the cops riding your bike, going to the Dollar Tree, right? And all your friends are white, but you're the only Black kid, right? What does that look like? We live in the suburbs. And so for me to have those conversations, and then once he starts driving, those driving conversations, how you can't go in your glove department, keep your hands on, you know, on the thing in your car, you know, make sure, you know, all these things that we need to make sure. Why do we have to have these conversations? All right, we're gonna go to Jahira and then Don. And it's 1 o'clock, but I'm gonna actually stay on for about 15 minutes. So if folks can stay, I implore you to stay, but if you have to jump off for a meeting or a class, please do. But I definitely want to hear from some of you. It will really help me. So Jahira.
The one topic you were talking about, microaggression, I didn't really know about that much until like today we spoke about it. And what you were talking about, I thought like I have dealt with a lot of microaggression when I grew up, like while I grew up. Cause as a female who's Puerto Rican who lives in Philly, you deal with a lot of type of that. Like especially my family members, they're telling me, "Oh, you look pretty, even though your hair is not curly as other Puerto Ricans are." Like in my family, because they have a lighter complexion than me, and their hairs are more straight than me, so I feel a little different with my family, and especially a lot in my community, because they say, "Oh, you speak well for with a Rican accent," because I used to have when I was younger, or you look pretty even though you're a little on the bigger side. So dealing with a lot of stuff like that is really hurtful. And I agree with Juan and what you said about the if you're not white, you're up to no good. Because like while I was traveling to Pittsburgh just now, my mom told me don't speak to anyone that is different from you, especially white people. And that really like stung me because my mom's been so affected by what she be seeing on the news and stuff that lately that she can't even trust white people herself, or she won't let me talk to them that much.
Yeah. And then what we have to know, thank you, Jahira, for sharing. Like, it's not all white people. It's not all white cops. It's not all cops. Like, I have sisters who are cops, right? I have white cop friends who I know and love. Like, Alexis is here with us. Like, our university police, like, are in this with us, right? And so we can't, if we lump all cops, we're doing the same thing what people do with all us, right? And so I don't believe in lumping like all cops are bad. That's not what we're talking about, right? But we're talking about de-escalation and training and different things in terms of that. But yes, what our parents are seeing on TV definitely goes into like when when you all want to go out, not we, but when y'all want to go out, you know, what your parents says. But what else? Let me hear from some other people. What is something I said today that you've connected with that's impacted you, or how are you feeling right now?
Well, so it's just the stuff that's been going on recently. Like the shooting actually happened not too far from me, and I feel like everything, like it's just a lot of stuff in this. Like I feel like every day everything is just getting closer and closer to my home. Because when the rioting started, it actually started a block away from my house, and like it was just insane. Like hearing as many gunshots as I heard in just one night, just it was insane. And it's like I have to still go out here in this community, even if like just to go to the store, like anything could happen. And that's the scariest part, especially being Black and a male who is not very like, I'm not like a small skinny male. I'm a bigger male that is African American, so I could be seen as anything. And it's scary to just think about that. Like I don't even want to go outside like after a certain time. It's like it's insane because if I feel like it shouldn't even be this way. Like usually around my area is pretty calm, but it's like 52nd Street is just dangerous and in itself just very dangerous no matter what happens. Like just a few months ago, like a 14-year-old was shot in his head at a laundromat, at the same laundromat I used to go to. So it's like it's crazy.
That's your everyday, Don. And I really appreciate you for sharing because like I said, like I moved to the suburbs, so I'm a little bit removed, but what I understand is that my students live right here. You know, like the store that my grandma frequents every single day and she's 90 got looted. You know, she can't go there. Yeah. She can't go around to the avenue. And she's in Germantown. So the looting is all over the city, you know, and I mean, I personally don't understand why we're tearing up our neighborhoods. That's like still where I'm confused about. Like, go tear up their neighborhoods. I don't know. Come out here to the suburbs, whatever. But we're tearing up our neighborhoods, and us, our grandparents, our parents, like can't even go to the Rite Aid, you know. And then we're out here selling the items on Facebook Marketplace. I'm so confused about what's happening right now, like in the city, and why this is a response to. It has to be a better response. That's all I'm saying, you know. So in terms of allyship, like it has to be a better response. But I need folks to understand that. So, you know, Black man is killed by white cops and Black people tear up the whole city, and now Black people further perpetuates that we are bad, up to no good, thieves. Like I don't know. I mean, I know
it's just like each time something happens, it seems like my neighborhood gets destroyed. Like they destroyed our dollar store again. So like it was gonna be hard for us to get certain supplies that we might need or that could be easily accessed if we just go to the dollar store. Even the poppy store that's up by the dollar store was broken into, along with the bank that's up there too. It's insane.
Why are you breaking into a bank? What can you steal from a bank? I'm just
no
gonna
idea.
like,
I don't know why.
but
I don't even know why.
so I just need you to stay safe, Don, because the reality is, thanks for people who are still here listening. There are y'all all, some of you live in the city, like y'all living right there. So just please be safe. Like you even came to class on Tuesday. Like my heart thought about that. Like you're just trying to get to school, right? And something goes down. So if you have the privilege to live not in the city, and you kind of don't have to think about these things, right? Is really important to understand and listen to what people are telling you who are living in it, right? And what they go through. Let me hear from a couple of other people. A lot of people are still here. Yes, Stephen. Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation. And I feel like I'm a very privileged person. And to piggyback on what Donald said, I live in the suburbs, and sometimes I walk to the mailbox at night, and I feel safe doing so. And I realize that not everyone would feel safe. And I want to be an ally, but I also don't want it to come off as superficial. And so there were a lot of things that were said today and a lot of techniques that are very helpful. So I thank you for doing this, and also within the time frame that you're giving this presentation and seminar. So thanks everyone, and this was helpful. And I mean, I'm open to suggestion. I hope I can listen, and I mean, I think I do. But anyway, I'll just stop because now I'm just rambling and not making sense.
You're fine, Stephen. You're faculty, right?
Yes.
Oh, tell the students who don't know you, like tell people what department you're in and so that they know.
Sure, I'm in biology and I teach the physiology courses.
Okay.
Right now I teach the anatomy and physiology lab. I teach the upper division physiology courses, and I've been here for just about 12 years. And one thing that's great about Abington is the engagement of our students. This is a mostly commuter campus, but when I first came here, I saw layers and everyone in layers and people having fun and getting along. And the faculty do that too. So it really is a great place to be. And even though we're virtual now, this really, with everyone being here, it's a good sign, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. I mean, it says a lot about you that you've signed up for a lot of our workshops, which I know. But you're the first step is being here, right? Just being visible and letting students know like you're here to listen. I feel like a lot of students, you all can be truthful. Like they don't get that from a lot of their faculty, Stephen, and they might not have you, but a lot of faculty really just start class and haven't even been checking in. And so what I tell faculty and staff is know our students. Our students are like Donald, who lives at 52nd Street, right? Like blocks away from the shooting. And we have to be checking in with our students, even the ones that don't know what's going on. We have an obligation. So I'm going to let, and I know Marissa is still here. Thank you, Marissa. Another staff member that's so amazing. I'm gonna let Amanda go, and I think someone else, Leif and Amanda, and then we'll end with those two comments.
You want to go first? I just wanted to go off of what Donna was saying, because yesterday when we were in the Black Lives Matter meeting, I was saying how, we saw that it was in Philly this time, the shooting. And, when I saw that all this stuff was going on everywhere else, I never thought it would, come to us. At least like, it might have happened, but, it's not on the news and stuff. So when I saw that it happened, where we were from, it just was like crazy. And then, my neighborhood, it wasn't really that bad. It was always a quiet neighborhood, but it's just been, like everything's just been coming closer and closer and closer as the years go on. Like I was robbed in front of my own house. My brother had a gun pointed to him like recently. Last night, actually, when everything was going on, like a guy with a gun like literally walked past me. I was sitting in the car in front of my house, and like I heard it was a bunch of cops around my house, like all down my block, on the top, at the bottom. And I heard this girl saying that, some guy was coming with a gun and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm hearing stuff. Like I'm not really like realizing that this is really happening right now. Cause, I never really had to go through a lot of stuff because where I live, because it was always a quiet block. And it was just like so surprising. Like we really got to go through this now, especially with all the looting and stuff going on. And like the guy literally walked past my car. He was looking at us, and I was like, all I could think of was like, what if he shoot this car up? Like it was me and my cousins and stuff. And, people are crazy nowadays. And it's just like sad that, we're not even safe in our own neighborhoods. I live with my grandma and I live with all old people and my younger sister, and we be so scared to walk out the house, like especially at night. So it's just so crazy. Like it really gives me a lot of anxiety. Like I used to love coming where I come from and living in Philly, and I always said I never wanted to leave, but it's been so bad, and it's so sad. It's young people dying now, older people, like nobody is saved, nobody cares about humanity anymore, it seems like. And it's just like it's so
Yeah, we're killing each other too. Leif, I know you.
Sorry.
Y'all,
What you talking about? All right, thank you. God, all right, two things. Like add on to like what Amanda was saying. For me, I knew it was inevitable that it would come to Philly, like with all the rioting and the violence and the civil unrest, because first of all, we have over almost 400 homicides, and it was just inevitable for police to shoot an individual. It's sad, but it was inevitable. So I'm not like shocked or surprised. More so just like, damn, like just sad that it had to happen. Two, I wanted to put a plug in for Brother to Brother actually. So I'm saying if you're interested in our organization and you want to just have like a safe space to just like talk, or you just want to join an org just cause, or you just want to have like a place to just, build some brotherhood or whatever, leave your email in the chat and I'll send you an invite on Engage. And yeah.
Yeah. How about this, Leif? We're just going to send it out to all the people who are here today.
Or that.
All right, y'all gotta mute yourselves. Sorry, they're all in the office together. But yeah, so we've said a lot. It's been a lot. It's a lot to think about. I really want to thank Benjamin, Isaac, Vincent. Like y'all have had y'all camera on the whole time. And y'all like right at the top of my screen. So I just appreciate y'all. Y'all talk a little bit in the chat. But sometimes when you have these conversations, to be quite frank, for white people, they like check out. Like white people are like, no, that's not about me. Like, that's not me. And so I really like appreciate folks who have stayed with us, especially students who came for a class, but like are really trying to like learn something. But this is the reality. And so what college is about for me and why I like working at universities is because it's like a mirage of different people that get to come together and learn from each other. And we're virtually. So, one of my commitments this semester was to just create these environments virtually. And that's what we've been doing. Next week, we're going to talk about colorism 101, kind of like the same thing, but more so like colorism in our communities of color is really big. It's also another concept that's not talked about a lot, but our goal is just to introduce these things. Lastly, my last plug is for O'Day. We have a lot of different of our staff on here, but the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is for everyone. So check out our programs. You'll all get an email to join our text list, to join our email list. When we have programs, they're for everyone. So come out, continue to learn. College is about getting to know people that are different than you, because you don't get to pick your boss or your coworkers. So you want to build the capacity to be culturally competent now. So thank you to all of my students who stayed on here from my class that's been over for 15 minutes. I see you, David, trying to get your extra credit. Aaron, I see y'all, and Anna. So, I just want to thank everyone. I recorded this whole session. Kiki, give me 1 second. I'll let you be our last comment. I recorded this whole session so that it'll also be available on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch it, and then I'll send out the PowerPoint so you can have it. But I sent out an email about an hour before the presentation, which has some important links in it that can be helpful as well. If you ever have questions in your journey to live allyship, hit me up. Let me know what you need, how I can be helpful in any conversations that we can have. Okay, Kiki, I'll just stay here. You stay too. And then we'll just go from there. So thank you all for being here. If you pray and that's what you do, I'm sorry. I'm just seeking prayers for my city, for everything that's going on, and just for all the moms who have sons, and specifically the 3 sons who lost their dad, and then just the family of Walter Wallace Jr. just pray if that's what you do, or you believe in divine intervention or anything. The city needs it right now. This is still not a national issue. Not sure if anybody is keeping up with the news. It's still a local issue because he had a knife. Maybe you need to provide some perspective later, give me some of your criminal justice logic, but I'll take it later. So anyhow, it's just kind of like a Philly thing right now, and it's not national. So I'm gonna get off. Thank you all for staying the extra time for my staff. Just hold tight for the staff. Just stay on the line for a minute for me. But thank you all for coming. Hope to see you soon.
Actually, real quick, Mr. Nisa, everyone was saying like how the cops should have shot him in his leg, or like should have tackled him or whatnot, and like they believe like they shouldn't have shot him in like the upper body, whatever. But the cops are actually, that's how they're trained. They're trained to shoot for the center of mass. They're not trained to shoot an individual in their leg.
They're trained to shoot for the center of
their mass, like their body mass, like a chest.
Why? Can you give me a why?
Why? Because that's just how they're designed to neutralize the threat. Yeah, it's just how it is. Well, not. No,
so there's
shoot them in the leg.
So
it's messed up, but that's how they're trained.
All right, yeah, it's probably not a discussion I'm going to understand, but I'm willing to have it. Like, I'm just trying to understand. Like,
someone in the leg, they might live and they might shoot you back. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's
all right.
Messed up, but
Anissa?
Yes.
Sorry to cut in.
No, I'm here. All my staff is here. If that's okay. I don't know if it's a private question or not.
No, yeah, it's perfect. I've been trying to get in contact with O'Day, because it's not a button, right? Because I sent out an email to you, Anissa, and I also texted you a while ago because one of my board members was trying to get in contact with O'Day because we're planning Festivus, which is a bunch of cultural and religious organizations, or not, that's planning like a holiday party where we showcase every single person's like way of celebrating. And we wanted to ask if O'Day would be interested in sponsoring it. But at this point, it's just if O'Day would be interested in being a part of it.
Okay, hold on. Let me find it. It's been a crazy semester, but let me find your email. Hold on.
Yeah, I understand. I completely understand. You should have got an email from Subin.
Oh, yeah. Who did the email come from? Because I don't have it from you.
Yes, it's from Ann Angelina. I don't, like, it should be.
Oh, from Subin.
Yes, from Subin.
Okay.
The email was for the email. I think it says like co-host and stuff, but we're sort of a little bit past that right now.
Okay.
Because
y'all already planned it, right?
No, we're still planning. We have currently we have 13 organizations on campus planning it with us. O'Day was just going to be one of that organization. So now I'm just asking in whatever capacity O'Day is able to work with us with it.
Okay. What's the date, babe?
November 19th.
November 19th?
Yes, it's a Thursday.
Okay. All right, so I think half of my staff is here. So you all heard that. We actually are supposed to have our own holiday thing, but I feel like if y'all are already doing it, it's no need to reinvent the wheel. So let me just talk to them. Do you have any more? So I see this original email, but do you have more information about it, like time and what y'all have planned? Can you send me some updates?
Yeah, so I can add you, 1 second. I can add you to the Google Drive, which has every single thing you possibly need concerning the event. Because I feel like it'd be too long if I try to put you on an email list, but I can add you to the Google Drive.
Okay, but what so the Google Drive is fine, but what I'm trying to understand is kind of like how the program will go and how like we can help, because we were kind of doing the same thing, so we don't need to do. I'm just trying to understand the layout of the program. Is that in the Google Drive?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So currently, I don't know. There's just a lot, but we only started. We had all our meetings, our first meetings with all the organization present last week on Friday. So this week we started putting in event requests. We put in funding requests. What we're doing right now, though, that you can possibly, if you want to be a part of it, what we're doing right now is we're doing something called a mystery box. 1 second. We're doing something called a mystery box. Sorry, I have to toss because you're always so loud. We're doing something called a mystery box, which is every single organization will pick out one item from Amazon that sort of represents them, and we will put that in a box. And the first like 60 people to RSVP get a mystery box with stuff from all the organizations.
So they get the items from Amazon.
Yeah. So it's like
cool.
we're gonna have like sort of like a package in whatever on campus, and we package everything. It's like 4 items at random from different organizations. Or they can, if you want to add an item, that's perfectly fine. If you have like other stuff. But so the way the event is sort of like laid out is it's a holiday party. The first 1 hour is set for like organizations to share about themselves and how they celebrate the holiday. And the remaining 2 hours, because it's 4 to 7, is for activities and fun party-like things, like holiday party-like things. If that makes sense.
All right, so let me do this. We have a team of student ambassadors who are in charge of the holiday party. I'm going to connect you and them in an email, and then they're going to like identify 1 or 2 people that can work with you, and then we're going to talk and just figure out how we can help your event and like if we need to still do our own or whatever. But I need to, it's a lot of moving parts going on in O'Day right now. So I just need to have one of them. I need to have that team connect with you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Do you want me to put my email in the chat, or?
You go to Penn State. I got all your information, boom.
Okay. All right. That's perfectly fine. All right.
I know
Thank
how to
you.
find. I got you. So I'll connect y'all via email today, and then we have a staff meeting actually tonight. So we're going to talk about it at our staff meeting, and then someone will follow up with you tonight.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate
Bye.
it.
Enjoy the rest
Bye.
of your day.
You too.
Okay.